Hi there, I'm Kurtis Hewson, lead learner and co-founder of Jigsaw Learning, and in this recording we're going to look at the critical process of the key issues examination in a collaborative team meeting. So when we think about collaborative response and the foundational components of collaborative structures and processes, data and evidence, and continuum of supports, we do know that the driver is collaborative structures and processes. It really is critically important to the overall framework, and within those collaborative structures and processes, the collaborative team meeting is really the engine that drives this whole process forward. For us. In time, we just continue to look at refinements in that collaborative team meeting, but in doing so, it's really critically important that we understand the purpose of the collaborative team meeting, as well as the structures and processes that we put in place to ensure maximum efficiency, productivity, and efficacy for us over time. Yes, it is about coming together to talk about the needs of students, but it's done in a very specific way and in a way that is all about building everybody's collective capacity. So let's first examine the purpose of that collaborative team meeting. We know that schools that are establishing and operating from a collaborative response mindset have to be thinking about their collaborative structures in regards to layers. And there is in the slides a link to a blog post that explains this further. So very simply, there's really 4 layers that we think about within a school. The first is what we refer to as a case consult team meeting, where we examine the needs of one student and bring everyone around the table that needs to be part of that conversation. It's in this conversation where we're likely looking at Tier 4 supports, which are those provided by someone external to our school, coming in to provide some very individualized needs and supports. Next layer, as we work down, is what we refer to as the school support team meeting. Now, whether that's student services, learning services, the intervention team, inclusive ed team, we've heard lots of different iterations of this, but essentially, that team is responsible for examining the needs of students that are coming forward from our classrooms and thinking about what are some of the supports we need to put in place from somebody other than the classroom teacher. Traditionally, this would have been done through referral, and oftentimes this team, without some of the subsequent structures in place, can get quite overwhelmed within a school or within the system with the number of complex needs that are coming towards us. Again, both these two layers are important and quite often evident in schools that are not adopting a collaborative response approach. We do know that there's a base layer that is foundational in regards to how we bring together our teachers to engage in collaborative planning. How do the staff within the building come together to really look at what we would refer to as our Tier 1 supports? And again, within collaborative response, we're not tiering the students, we're tiering the supports. Within that collaborative planning, whether that's happening weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, PD days, staff meetings, it's all about how do we have teachers collaborating around some of our big instructional pieces, assessments. Oftentimes it involves examination of curriculum, but a missing layer that's foundational to collaborative response is the collaborative team meeting. And it's intended to be the space where we are identifying the needs of students, but focusing almost exclusively on what could we do in the classroom at a Tier 2 level to help build supports for our students, but being done so in a way that's about unpacking everybody's toolbox, and it's done through a key issue process. Let me break down what this process looks like through the course of that team meeting. So we've often talked about the need to start collaborative team meetings with an emphasis on reviewing your norms, picking one that you'll practice, then looking at celebrations. And then we want to ask the question of, is there a student that we'd like to examine, and can we articulate a key issue? So some of the things that are important in this is that it has to start with a student. We don't want to start with, I have a key issue, because it becomes too universal and doesn't have a face connected to it. We do not want to come to that part of the conversation and have one of our team members say, one of the key issues I'm seeing for a lot of students across my class are, as a facilitator, I would come back and still say, can you identify one or two students that you're really seeing that happen for? Because it's important for us to have the names when we get in later in this process. Oftentimes, we want to be utilizing a pre-meeting organizer to get ready for this, and the idea is, can we boil down to a key issue with no more than 8 words? If we need to tell a long story about what's going on, that's probably an indication that that conversation should be existing in one of our other layers. We want to be able to get to a place where we can say, I'd like to talk about Braden, and right now, the key issue I'd like to impact is the ability to break down assignments into logical next steps in order to be able to complete them. Boom. As soon as we've got that clarity and that we've focused in on one key issue, we're ready to move forward. You'll notice in that we want limited background information. We also do not want that to be the place where we say, okay, well, tell us everything you've done so far. The idea with this in the collaborative team meeting is brief conversation about the student, extensive conversation about the pedagogy, rather than extensive conversation about the student, brief conversation on the pedagogy. So once we have that key issue articulated, then we go around and say, for this teacher, do you have a student with a similar key issue? This teacher, do you have a student with a similar key issue? And we try and add other students to this key issue. So what that allows us to do is to not leave one teacher on the hot seat or make it all about one student when it's quite possible others around the table may not have a deep understanding of that student. And again, that's not the purpose of our collaborative team meeting. Once then, we have student, key issue, and have attached other students to that. Now we're going to start a beautiful process of brainstorming of ideas. If the key issue is breaking down assignments into logical steps for students, how do you do that in your classroom? What does that look like? What have been some things that you've tried in the past? It's important during this brainstorming that we have a chance to review our school's continuum of supports, that's how it connects here, and that we're not evaluating ideas. When someone suggests something, we're not saying, oh, I don't think that'll work for my student or not. We're just trying to access pedagogy utilizing a great deal of what if we tried this? I wonder how this would look. I used to have a student where I would try this, and we just brainstorm off one another. In time, what we start to see is one idea might lead to another, and we might end up with an innovative solution that none of us had considered previously. It's important during this time that we're documenting those ideas, whether that's right in our meeting notes, and on our website we have meeting template agendas that does that. We also have posters that allow us to identify key issue and then document what are all the ideas that we'd want to be able to do for that. And again, being able to refer to our continuum. Then, once we have a number of ideas to try, now we go back to individuals and we say, okay, Kurtis, for the student that you brought forward, what's one thing that you want to be able to try? And we make note of it, of what's the action, who's taking care of it, and when do you think you'll get that done by? Again, in time, this moves very, very smoothly for us. And what we'll also see is in time, people starting to stretch what they would normally be trying within their classroom practices for us. We will also start to see things such as, boy, Sharif, that's a great idea. Can you show me what that looks like? Or can I meet with you afterwards so that I could get a copy of what it is that you were suggesting? I really like that idea. Again, the idea here is that we're leveraging the need of the student to open up a conversation about pedagogy for us. And you'll notice through this, the teacher is still absolutely in control and owning the actions to take. But as mentioned, we do see over time that people begin stretching. They use this as an opportunity to just bolster ourselves, and we reach a place where a highly effective collaborative team meeting is when we're not just responding to the needs of students, but we're doing so in a way that everybody's walking out of this conversation with 2 or 3 new ideas, connections to other staff members to begin to extend their learning, and really trying to walk away with ideas that can impact a great deal of students, both currently and in the future. So again, so important that then each teacher identifies an action they'll take for the student that they had identified in connection to that key issue. So there is a poster that you can access that breaks this down. We've seen schools starting to utilize it right in their team meetings or as a poster up in the wall. But once again, when we make that shift to the key issue, and for us this is the game changer in that collaborative team meeting, we're able to attach multiple students. No longer is a single teacher on the hot seat, or are we focusing on solely one learner. It almost, in a sense, allows me to say this key issue, and other people can resonate to say, yeah, I'm struggling with that too, with a student or two, and it depersonalizes that for us. We're able to focus on classroom practice and innovative solutions. Again, those what-ifs really start to snowball into really innovative things that we could be thinking about, not just in our own classrooms, but across our school. And through it, every toolbox becomes enhanced through this process.